Good morning, everybody, and we welcome Cullen Haynes, Director at Legal Home Loans this morning, to share with us how he's been spectacularly successful at producing a very successful business in the kind of professional services area. So Cullen and his business partner, I think is the correct word, left a major bank 4 years ago, and they now employ 17 people at Legal Home Loans. And I thought there would be some great learnings for Cullen to share with us this morning about how that's been possible. Many of you will be familiar with him. He has a ubiquitous presence on social media platforms, particularly LinkedIn. But I might start, Cullen, with we didn't try and dominate the whole market. We chose a very specific market, and we chose a name accordingly. So please tell us the start of this journey and why you chose lawyers.
Absolutely, and honoured to be here, Alistair. I've been a follower of yours for many years, and it's good to see that you're adding value like this to professionals, because no one, even though you don't have the title of salesperson, everyone is in sales if you deal with people. So I think I reckon it's a really good thing that you're doing. The start of our journey, well, my journey in particular, I was at Macquarie Bank. My business partner, Andrew, is at BOQ Specialists. And we were both looking after doctors, lawyers, accountants, and whatnot. He left first and, started the business in a lawyer's office, and he was overhearing conversations. And despite common sentiment that lawyers have their affairs in order when it comes to finance, they don't. They're too busy looking after their own clients that they don't have time to put their own mask on first. And then Andrew gave me a call and said, Cullen, we need to start this for lawyers because it's an untapped market. And I was doing quite well at Macquarie, and I originally said no. And, I'm very happy. But I've told this story many times, but I was reading a book at the time, and it's called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And it's by Leo Tolstoy. It's a Russian novel, so I wouldn't recommend you read it today, but put it on your list. And the title says, he's going to die. And the story is of a lawyer, as it were. And he became a judge, but he hated his life. And on his last day, on his deathbed, he looks up at his wife and he goes, what if my whole life has been wrong? And I just thought to myself in that moment, I don't ever want to think in 5 to 10 years' time, what if we started this thing together? And I'd be still sitting at Macquarie not knowing, but I wouldn't be any wiser. But that was the start. That was in May the 4th, 2018, 4 years ago. And we decided to look after lawyers because the banks have very special products for lawyers that no one knows about. So that was probably the big thing. And the big product for them is they can borrow more than the average punter, as it were. They can borrow 90%, whereas us civilians, you and me, Alistair, can only borrow 80. And when you're a broker, you're told you can look after everyone, or they choose to look after doctors because they're high net worth. And it was just an untapped market. Still to this day, there is not a Legal Home Loans number 2 or anyone looking after lawyers, and we're honoured to serve them because they're so time sensitive. No one else does it, and we've carved out a nice little niche.
And you kind of have a dual role, yourself and Andrew. So you understand each other's strengths. So yours is in this branding and image, and you're the marketing front of the chairman of the board, image-wise, and Andrew, it strikes me, is the production and making sure everything runs smoothly in the background. But you seem to be the image or the face of the brand. Is that fair?
Look, we're in the early days, certainly. It's certainly, as we've gotten bigger, becoming a little bit more structured, I'd say. And as the team gets bigger, I'm actively trying to make it less about the Cullen Show and bring the team up, because we've got a team of 17 now. But indeed, it's fire and ice with me and Andrew. He's the nuts and bolts behind the scenes, the operation, making sure everything runs smoothly. And just because I love, ever since my early days when I moved to Sydney, circulate to percolate, face-to-face, belly-to-belly. I love networking. And I realized very quickly when I left Macquarie that LinkedIn and social media was a powerful platform, not to boost my image, but to boost the people that I'm with, people like yourself, the legal professionals I was with. And because of that, it really, really helped, first building the network, but also to, you never know where a coffee's going to take you. And I always say the purpose of these platforms like LinkedIn and the branding is to take the online offline. And I can't tell you how many coffees I've had with, they may not even be lawyers, but they've ended up with an introduction to someone that's ended up with either a big partnership or a big opportunity for us. So I think that's correct in that our roles are different, but we play to that, and I think it's worked well certainly for the last 4 years and onwards.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't got an official sponsorship by a coffee brand, because I thought I drank a lot of coffee in a week, but I think you might have overtaken me on that score.
We do try to change it up with juices and teas now and then, Alistair. No, absolutely.
I must also say about commitment and the hours that I put in. So there's no quick, easy wins here. We joked offline before we came on that you nearly knocked me over at a pedestrian crossing last night at about 8 o'clock at night as you were driving home. And you're famous for doing early runs on the beach at sunrise and things. So you have pretty long days. So again, I just want you to confirm almost that this doesn't come easy and it takes a level of commitment.
No, it's a good point, Alistair. And I tell my team, like every week or so, we bring up a quote around it, success only comes before work in the dictionary, hard work especially. And, everyone always sees the finished product. And I think as human beings, we want the people that we, I guess, admire or aspire to be ready-made, but no one wants to see the hard work that went into it. There's no easy formula. Like when we started, especially, we got up early, we stayed late, we work around our clients. Our clients are busy people. You usually can't get them during the day. So it's either early morning after the run, 7 to 9, or late at night, as you saw last night. And, there's this whole thing about work-life balance, which I'm all for. But if you've got a passion for something, I'm really a big believer of work-life quality. So as long as you're building the cathedral, as it were, whatever that cathedral is to you, and you've articulated this to your family, my wife never gives me a hassle to say, hey, why are you working too late? Or you shouldn't be doing this or anything like that, because, I've let her know that anything I'm doing, I would never stay out late on, for my health. It's because we're building something. And I think that needs to be talked about in this era of work-life balance. You have to clock off at 5 and all that stuff, because that gets a lot of, I guess, news and volume to it. But I did a poll on LinkedIn the other day about this, and it was heavily weighed towards, if you're passionate about something and you want to add value, then you should put in the effort and give it your all, and don't go at it half.
I know you're also very passionate about self-improvement, and you're an avid reader of motivational books and podcasts of, quite famous people. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, or some of the people that we should all follow?
Absolutely. Look, I'm a big believer in self-enrichment. Nadam, my wife, said to me when in the early days that she thought I was an egomaniac for doing it, but I think it's grown on her a little bit. It started for me when I was about 12 or 13. My father and mother got me onto Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins very early. And we used to listen to him in the car and on the way to high school and things. And I think that's rubbed off on me, that I just love that whole sentiment of not being better than anyone else, but being better than who you were yesterday. Sure. So it's about that stretching, as it were. So it started with Jim Rohn, who you see that I quote a lot because he's so timeless. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenges, wish for more opportunity out of those challenges. And that got obviously onto the Tony Robbins, who basically appropriated all of Jim Rohn's work and then basically got me into this whole self-enrichment movement, as it were. And there's some great people to follow, like Robin Sharma, the monk who sold his Ferrari. Mitch Albom, he does a lot of fiction, but there's always a positive slant to it. To the very polarizing Mr. Grant Cardone, who comes out with his own slant on self-enrichment and sales. But what I do suggest to people is that you don't go in and just take everything blindly. You take the best bits of things, and even if you only get 1 point from a book or a podcast or what have you, it's worth it. And we've appropriated that in our sales team in our company, or we've taken the best bits from the Grant Cardones of the world or the Tony Robbins and their sales things, and we just kind of blended it because you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is true to you. What
I find interesting when I'm doing, I'm not going to use the S word because our legal friends listening to this podcast are fearful of that word. So
we'll say business development, BD.
Indeed. So I might call it conversion training when I'm doing conversion training. So how to turn flat whites into billable hours. Okay, so that's kind of the work that I will do with lawyers. And I'll say to them, tell me the best BD person you've ever met and the character traits. And they always say things around personality and attitude, which is what we're just describing. So they say, Alistair, you might be outgoing, and that Cullen Haynes guy, you know, he has a certain personality, and I'm much more insular, and I'm not as outgoing, and I'm a technical person, and I just can't do it. And I say, well, if you actually look at the things, it's not all about being exuberant personality, not at all. But you have to be structured and have discipline. And you know, I'm sure we're kicking down open doors around, you know, people who have good weekly or daily disciplines around some of these things do better than those people who don't. But it's not all big rah-rah personality, but it is attitudinal. It starts with attitude. And I've worked with 60-year-old people who are quite, internal people. They wouldn't be great in networking necessarily, but there's lots of things they can do, and they get excellent because they get taught skills. So people think they can't do it, but there's so much free stuff available online and in videos and books. They're missing a trick if they don't go and find some, I think.
No, it's a good point. And there's a great book about this whole conversion BD. It's called The Miracle Equation, written by Hal Elrod. And he also wrote The Miracle Morning as well. And it talks about the best people in their industry. They usually work out not the end product. And for us in mortgages, for lawyers, it's settlements, right? How many applications have you settled? Very poor salespeople, or BD people, as it were, or lawyers who are looking at their matters, will look at, why am I only getting this many in a month on the matters or the settlements? But what no one ever thinks about is, what are the activities that go into getting a matter on your desk or things like that? And it talks about this in the miracle equation and those daily habits. You actually have to talk to, say, 10 people online to get that one coffee meeting to then get that matter. And the people that do it very well have a daily process of, maybe they do 20 or 30 LinkedIn voicemails and things, or they send out 5 emails a day, and they meet with at least 2 or 3 people a day to then get that. We've got that in our company, in terms of, if you want to hit your target, you need to be sending out 5 to 10 solutions a day to then filter down that number. And it's so important, that front end piece, because if you don't circulate to percolate on the front end, you'll never get it at the back end, as it were.
Okay, so you've created a marvelous segue for me to try and pick your brains. So to add value to the people listening, I'm not going to ask you to share the family jewels here, but how do you create interest with people who are unaware of either brand Cullen or brand Legal Home Loans? What type of activities have proved successful for you to get on people's radars?
Yeah, I think because of the unique value proposition, as it were, that we have, that we're the only mortgage broker for lawyers in Australia. It's like an exclusivity thing. And also too, that there's special products out there that aren't available to the average Joe. Lawyers as a demographic and professionals love the fact that there's something there that no one else can get. And we're very prolific, and we put that out there, and we're not shy about saying that, because as we've talked about, Alistair, it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. So our goal here at Legal Home Loans is to be so omnipresent that when you think about a home loan, a commercial loan, a Chambers loan, a car loan, you may not use us, but at the very least, you think about us, because we're on your radar. And that's come about, through various different means, and, in terms of being omnipresent. But definitely what served us is obviously the great job we do for our existing clients, because if you do a great job, they tell 3 or 4 more people within the firm. And we've got it to a great point now where we've actually created an offering to add value to the firm as a wider cohort, as it were, that if you settle a loan with us, we'll say, look, if you want to add value to your team, we can actually have this program where you can benefit all the staff members. And it's just that clever hack of, if you've done a good job for them, they obviously want to tell people, but they also want to look good. It's all about making your client look good as well. So if you can add value, not just in a sales point of view or BD, but like, there's a way we can help you in your firm to look good, we'll do it. So it's all about creating that value, not just in terms of the service that you're offering, but the allied stuff you do for your clients. The other thing too, I would say, is every meeting I go to, whether it's a client or non-client, either the first or last questions I ask is there any holes in your network, or who can I introduce you to? Who do you need to know? What do you need to learn? Who do you need to get in front of? And I'll think in my mind 3 people who I can introduce that person to, and I'll get permission first. Are you okay with me doing it? And I'll introduce them afterwards. And I usually do it on LinkedIn. And people remember that, Alistair. People remember that, even though, oh, look, you couldn't help me with my refinance, but you introduced me to 3 people. You just think how it's like a pay it forward thing. How many people you touch by doing that? If you did that 3 or 4 times a day, it's like a compounding formula. And it's a very easy, low budget way for those starting out or building their practice to do. And some of the most successful people who are very insular and maybe not vivacious as you or me, that I actually got that from someone who is the same sort of what you were describing, very insular, but he said, I always try and introduce people, and he did it in his own way via email. And he was one of the most successful BD and people in business I've ever seen. And I always took that on since I left Macquarie, and I think it's marvelous.
Yeah, I think adding value in every touch point. So every time you send a text message, an email, a phone call, a real meeting in person, there's always some value that you bring in. And the value of networks that you're talking about. And I know, I don't know many people who are networked as well as yourself, certainly within this legal industry, and both on and offline. I know that you also, people see you on LinkedIn all the time, but I know you're also pretty active in networks offline, and it obviously works for you. Now, I'm just going to push you on one point. So as you've talked very strong about, you have a genuine gap in the market that you fill very successfully. But I still think people listening would be interested about how you put yourself out there. So I know sponsorships is one thing that works particularly well for you, but I often have a go at legal firms who sponsor the wrong things in my view, but you've been very successful at it. And I guess because you know exactly where your clients meet in groups. So to try and be topical, Top Gun's out this week. It's a target rich environment. You know exactly where there's people meet in groups, so you can sponsor and go to the right events, I guess.
Yeah, correct. And I think we start with the personal piece first. This whole old adage that LinkedIn is not Facebook and vice versa and things like that is old hat. The lines are becoming very blurred. You can actually, and people will build more rapport with a human being who's genuine and authentic than those that are hiding behind the business facade. I can't tell you how many business meetings I've had because people have seen my running posts that I put out there on Instagram and LinkedIn, the books that I'm reading, the polls that I do that have nothing to do with finance or law, but because I put myself out there. There's another great lawyer out there, James Dapperchi, talks about coffee and a case note. And most of his posts are about the things around what he does and his interests. Niti, another great lawyer out there, talks about her personal journey and very endearing story. And it's a lot about stories as well, very endearing stories. So on the personal front, it doesn't have to be all about business. Obviously, partnerships are very important, and knowing where our clients are is very important as well. And the partnerships that we've been able to garner with, I guess, the major law bodies for us, because every lawyer has to be accredited somewhere, have been fantastic from a trust point of view. Because I always say lawyers and the S word, salespeople, don't usually mix at the best of times. But if you have an authorized body to say, hey, these guys, they're actually the real deal and they'll add value, it kind of removes that layer of skepticism and it builds trust. And then when they talk to us, you've got the trust, and then you build the rapport. You've got that magic formula for adding value and onboarding them as a client.
I think I've also may have seen a few adverts in lifts as I've gone up and down office blocks in CBDs that may or may not host law firms, which I always think is quite clever.
No, look, and we don't. I'm not advocating that you have to do all that now. That's taken 4 years to get to that point where we can obviously afford to do that and be omnipresent. It is expensive to advertise yourself in targeted lifts that lawyers are going to be in, and I call that the subliminal messaging. And you're in your lift and you look up for 3 seconds. It's only a small bit, but it's there. That's very important too. As way leads on to way, that that's a great way to drive interest. Is being everywhere all the time, even for that microsecond. And we do a lot with the LSJ and all the bodies to have ourselves in the marketing in their magazines as well. And I think it's just a a piece that, because what we do is quite transactional, I will say, people's mortgages and refinancing and purchasing and whatnot, it's very important that we are front of mind, because we've all been to a party, a barbecue or what have you, Alistair, where someone you know who you may love knows you, and you talk about your product and they say, oh, I bought one of those the other day. And there's something inside that hurts. And you think, probably don't say it, but you think, oh, why didn't you come to me? The reason is not their fault. It's your fault for them not being aware of what you do, and in such a way that they feel confident coming to you. So, that I think I often use that story because we've all been there. So, yeah.
You're very blessed. You mentioned, we're now successful 4 years into the project, but if there are people listening who are, starting out how to build a practice, maybe some younger folks, where would you advise them start with your learnings over 4 years? If I'm starting to build a practice and I'm perhaps limited by time or by budget, where would you point people to maybe start with, becoming visible and credible to a target market?
I would say there's 2 points, social media and referral partners. And you can use a blend of the approach. LinkedIn, Instagram, now TikTok, all these things are free. You don't have to put any money in there. There's just the investment of your time and creativity. I would say if we start with LinkedIn, because it's a business platform, there is a lot of ways you can add value to people and meet people, like the referral partners, which we'll talk about through LinkedIn. I'm going to give everyone a tip who is listening. If you use LinkedIn and you connect with people, and Alistair, I'll send everyone, and you can put it on the blog, of a really successful connecting message to send to people. Sure. It's usually, hey there, love all your content you're putting out. You do this to people that you've seen. Would love to be part of your network, because I'd really love to be part of yours. And, looking forward to seeing more of you. When they connect with you, most people, as we know, there's a big block of sales text that comes up afterwards. And it's just like, oh, here we go. This is a 1% of everyone listening. There is actually a feature on LinkedIn that not many people know about. It's called the voicemail feature, right? And it's in the bottom corner. So when people connect with you, you just click on that, hold the button, hold the microphone, and you do this. And you can do it in one of 3 ways, but this is the main one. Hey, Jenny, love that we're connected. Love your content. Would love to grab a copy in the next couple of weeks, because, I really am inspired by what you're doing. Let me know when you're free. Also, too, we've come out with our latest article in our professional business network on how to run a successful practice. Let me know if you'd like me to send it your way. Boom, send that out. What you will get is 1 of 3 responses. Oh my goodness, Alistair, I've never knew that you could do voicemail. I'd love to grab a coffee, or at the very least, please send through your article. I'd love to read it. It's permission-based marketing. And people will always remember that. And I've got clients from 3-4 years ago when we started our business coming back going, Cullen, ready to move forward. Let's do it. Never met them for coffee. They just read that article. And it's worked from a client piece. Referral piece, I've met many and this is what we're talking about, low cost way of adding value. That's a great way to meet people like accountants, financial planners, other lawyers. And you don't go into the meeting saying, what clients can I rip out of you? You go, what can I add value to you? Who can I introduce you to? Because every business has a little board somewhere that they go, who sent us those clients? The last 3 clients we got was from Alistair. My goodness, we're going to have to start sending him some business, because otherwise he's going to stop. And it's like a reciprocity thing. Sure. So you'll eventually get in what you put in. I promise you, you'll get out what you put in. And they're very 2 low cost ways of doing it. Social media and referral partners. Yeah, referral partners is one that's well missed, I think. And like you say, people don't think about reciprocity enough in many cases. No. Yeah, I also talked about, we're adding value all the time. And you talked about having a signature piece of content, which you can send people, which I think lots of lawyers could learn from. They don't have anything that's available as a download on a website, and they don't have anything there where it instantly add value. And I often talk to people about, people remember how you made them feel. So they won't remember what you say. They won't necessarily remember what you did, but they'll always remember how the interaction made them feel. And again, it's the importance of that adding value at every touch point, I think. So like you say, most people are not ready to buy instantly. No. And I think you're totally right. Everyone also wears a sign. Mary Kay Ash said this, God bless her. everyone wears a sign that says, make me feel important as well. And I think people miss that as well. If I could suggest, I know, the S word again, but there's things you can do in your interactions and the way you talk to people to, if not get elicit a positive reaction out of people, but get them thinking of it as way leads on to way. One of the obvious things I would get everyone to do, that's an easy thing, is if you can look at a guy on YouTube or read his book. His name is Chris Voss. He is an ex-FBI and CIA negotiator. Lawyers will love this because he's also a great, conflict management type guy. But he talks about the first interaction you have with a client on the phone. You get them on the phone. Most people say, am I getting you at a good time? And you think that's good because you want to elicit a yes response. He actually says, don't do that. Get people to say no, because no actually builds more rapport. So the 1%er again, when you get someone on the phone, ask them, is now a bad time? Because if they say, no, it's not, it doesn't feel like someone's done you a favor. Most people get themselves right off on the wrong foot at the start because someone said yes, and they feel like I've now given Alistair a leg up because I've said yes. It's a psychological thing, small, but it adds value over time. The other thing he talks about is, in terms of building rapport, most people wait for their turn to speak. And then, like someone says, what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I went whitewater rafting. Oh, I've done whitewater rafting and blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't do that. What you should actually do is what's called mirroring. And Chris Voss talks about that. So if your client says, I did whitewater rafting, all you have to do is mirror the last 3 words and go, whitewater rafting? And they go, yeah, I did this. And I went down to, the coast, and they tell you more. And it's all about mirroring and labeling. And it's like, sounds to me, you're someone who loves adventure. Cullen, I love adventure. Those are 2 things that I've taught my sales team as well, that we've just seen a massive increase in rapport building, because they're not waiting for their turn to speak or injecting their own personal thing, but getting more out of not only their client interactions, but themselves. That I hear them using mirroring with each other. How was your weekend? Oh, it was just busy. Busy? It's just so marvelous when you start to do things like that.
It's quite interesting because I think lots of lawyers, when they go to their conversion or flat white meetings, tend to think that they should talk, and they talk too much.
No,
they don't ask questions, and it's all about them, and they give a history lesson of the firm, and that's not what people buy. No. And we end up with all this, we're a partner-led firm offering holistic, pragmatic solutions and holistic thinking, and it's all like, what's that nonsense? It doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, you can actually take that website and those values, and you wouldn't know it's that company. It could be hundreds of law firms or hundreds of companies that have that. I always say to my clients, when they say, what do we do? I say, we're in the business of time, because you're a busy person. You don't want to go from bank to bank, broker to broker. We just want to save you time. Oh, that's funny. How can you save me time? And then you ask them, okay, what is the biggest hurdles that you're finding? I'm a new partner. Oh, so you must have problems when you go to the bank. Cullen, massive problems. No one will give me money because they don't understand my income. Oh, that's interesting. Are they asking for financials? Yes. Well, did you know? It's a great segue. Did you know that as a partner, as a newly minted partner, you only need 1 CFO letter and 1 bank statement, and we've got the banks that can do that. Oh my goodness, let's do that. Also, I don't know if anyone in retail is listening. When you walk into a store, the first thing people say is, can I help you? And usually our first response is, what is it? No, I'm just looking. I've taught, whenever I go into a store and I have that interaction, I tell the sales clerk, I would, and I do it in a nice way. I go, you know what, you'd have a better hit point in saying, hey, how are you? Tell your clients, did you know that these are on sale? And it's like, just say, did you know? It changes the ball game. And also when they say, I'm just looking, you can say something like, hey, that's totally free. And if you don't buy something, that'll be on me, not you. And they're like, oh, great. Let me tell you what I'm looking for. Just these clever ways of switching it from the sales piece to giving the power back to the person, so they don't feel like they're being cornered. Yeah.
Wise words, sir. Now, I said I'd try and keep this conversation to around half an hour or under, and we're approaching. So have you got, maybe this is an unfair question, one last nugget for everybody who's listening today, a leaving thought or something, a Friday special?
Friday special, the way I live my life, it's my life philosophy, and hopefully if it was on my tombstone, it'll be there as well. Leave people better than you found them, whatever that may be. Happier, better position with their finances or legal back, or you've introduced them to someone new, or, you've just created that feeling where they feel good when they leave you. That's my mission. It's on my LinkedIn. It's everywhere. And I just love that I'm able to serve the legal community in the way that I do, not only by these interactions, by helping people self-actualize. Abraham Maslow once said, the biggest need of people is eventually to reach that top of the pyramid of the 6 human needs of self-actualization. And I'm very proud, and I'm sure you are as well, Alistair, that you're able to help people get to that pinnacle of being not better than anyone else, as we said before, better than who we were yesterday.
Okay, an awesome way to finish. I will totally finish out though. If people, those rare people listening who don't know Cullen and Legal Home Loans, where would they come and find you?
Look, we love LinkedIn. You'll probably see us on LinkedIn. Our website is everywhere, legalhomeloans.com.au, and usually LinkedIn and Instagram, but my number's on there as well. You can give me a call, and it says I'm available 7 days. That is true. You can call me, maybe not after 9 p.m., but I did speak to someone after 9 p.m. That's fine, but I usually go to bed quite early, 9:30 to get up early. But you'll find me on LinkedIn, and my number's there as well.
All right. Some awesome tidbits there for the audience. Thank you, Cullen, so much. I'll see you around and about in town. We'll have a flat white, I'm sure, fairly soon. Enjoy.
Almond latte. Let's do it.
All right. Cheers. See you now.